Back to Beorn's, a relaxing bedtime story for J.R.R. Tolkien fans. Read by the author, J.M. Tuber. Mae Govannen, and thank you for joining our journey into Middle-earth tonight. Before we get started, find a quiet spot, minimize diversions from the outside world, and take a moment to relax and settle in. Get comfortable. This time in your day, it's just for you. Master Peregrine Took had it right. "Dear me," he exclaimed, "we Tooks and Brandybucks, we can't live long on the heights." You see, hobbits weren't meant to manage so much hardship, anxiety, and strain in their lives, and neither were you or me. So give yourself permission to take time, to take a respite from the worries and stresses of the world, where a simple life, sadly, is no longer celebrated. But even in the hustle and bustle of the world nowadays, peacefulness is still available if you know where to look. If that's what you're looking for tonight, you've come to the right place. Together, we'll rediscover J.R.R. Tolkien's imagination by returning to a place that's free from the convoluted and sophisticated headaches of our current day. We'll return to Middle-earth. Breathe deeply and slowly and begin to wind down from the day's challenges. Feel your muscles begin to loosen and your worries melt away. In this space, you are free to find healing of mind and body. You deserve this moment and this rest. So once you feel ready, we'll begin. Tonight, our tale begins at the end of the Battle of Five Armies in The Hobbit, on the western border of Mirkwood Forest, as you and Gandalf begin to make the long return journey to your home far in the west, the Shire. Autumn is passing, and the chill of winter is setting over this part of the world. You breathe a well-earned sigh of relief, having left the last of the straggling scrub brush and sickly trees of Mirkwood Forest. Reassured that you will not be wandering into such dark places for the foreseeable future, you take another deep breath of the moist, cool air. The soft grass under your feet cushions your soles and is a welcome change from the rocky ground and scraggly underbrush of the forest. You're unsure about what was scampering below the rotting leaves that made up the forest floor. Perhaps it's best not to think about it. After all, it's been an exhausting march, and your mind and body, they long for a rest. Leathery soles or not, your feet ache. The forest floor wasn't the softest earth that you've trekked across. Certainly not like the rolling meadows and fields of Mickle Delving in the West Farthing, was it? Feeling the wind again on your face feels like being woken from an unpleasant sleep. The air within that forest was heavy, brooding, and stifling, so the gentle wind you now feel is rather refreshing. This is actually the first glimpse of the sky you've had in what seems forever, and the soft, chill rain doesn't dampen your mood in the slightest. Strips of charcoal gray clouds have hidden the sun from view, and yet you enjoy the smell of the rain in the air and the wet grass between your hardy hobbit toes. The spiders have long retreated back to their hidden lairs to the south, closer to Dol Guldur, and thanks to the Elven King and his kin, the orcs have been purged from the old forest road. Even with Gandalf and a small host of elves, traveling through Mirkwood was still unsafe and unpleasant. You've had enough trials and hardships that are really best left to the Tooks of the Shire. For even the most agreeable hobbit's patience and good nature can strain under hardship for too long, even yours. The Tookish aspect of your makeup, respectfully, has had more than enough adventures for a while. You hope that you've done your great-great-granduncle Brandoberus Bullroarer Took proud. But you're looking forward to taking things at ease and enjoying life's modest, Baggins-like pleasures in life. As if reading your thoughts, a reassuring hand pats your shoulder.
No more hikes up jagged mountains or long treks through dark forests in your future,
declares the wizard.
The weather might still be disagreeable. However, you'll soon find yourself warm, well-fed, and resting in pleasant company.
Walking beside him on the limestone gravel track that leads away from Mirkwood, you look up at Mithrandir and see a wry smile underneath his bright eyes and beneath his bushy white and gray-flecked beard. So, begging your pardon, Gandalf, but where are we headed, you ask? And more important, you want to know how soon you'll find yourself warm and well-fed and with whose pleasant company you'd soon be in. Gandalf explains that you'll first travel to and then stay the night at a rustic home of one of his counterparts, who lives on the western border of Mirkwood Forest. A gentle soul, albeit a little odd, who prefers the company of animals to people, big or small. You'll lodge in what is called the Brown House, in the elven tongue, Roscoble, and its caretaker, aptly named, Gandalf adds, is Radagast the Brown. He is one of the 5 wizards in Gandalf's order. All animals, whether they be on no legs, 2 legs, 4 legs, or more legs, so long as they aren't up to any mischief, can find rest and safety in Radagast's home. It's a bucolic sanctuary for all living creatures. After resting for the night, Gandalf explains that the 2 of you and Radagast will travel west via carriage to visit Beorn and his animal companions. Beorn, it is rumored, will allow you to stay as long as you like, perhaps until the warmth of spring returns, if that's what your heart desires. Gandalf adds that Beorn is looking forward to hosting guests this time around. Considering Beorn's lack of social graces and cantankerous disposition at times, this was, as you chuckle to yourself, remarkable news. Perhaps Beorn's newly found graciousness towards house guests has to do with just 3 of us arriving on his doorstep rather than 15, and 13 of those being sons of Durin, of which he's never been overly fond of. All of this news, of course, sounds more than promising than another night in a dark forest. And the thought of reuniting with your hulky, hairy friend, especially when he's in an agreeable mood, is good fortune indeed. Coarse and sometimes outright savage, Beorn is not to be trifled with. However, he is a gracious host, and he wants to hear all about your altercation with the fire drake of Erebor, dragons being one of the few species in Middle-earth that Beorn hasn't clashed with. Hearing the sounds of birds and gravel stones crunching underneath the old man's heavy boots, you gesture to Gandalf to lead on. However, not wishing to go further west, the Wood Elves halt their march. They present you and the old wizard with a sturdy rucksack filled with Epicurean delights from their realm, and they prepare to take their leave. You are in no danger now, and in no longer need of an armed escort, so they bid you a friendly Namadie, and plunge back into the forest, back to their king on the eastern edge of Mirkwood. You bid Thranduil's folk a hearty goodbye, and before you know it, they've disappeared back into the forest, leaving just you, the old wizard, and a faint drizzle in the air. Gandalf reassures you that it'll be more than a manageable hike to Roscoble for any hobbit who enjoys a brisk jaunt through the countryside. Turning away from the old forest, the two of you start off. True to Gandalf's word, you amble through a gentle, relatively respectful country in spite of it being called Wilderland, and having few inhabitants, probably not wanting to dwell so close to Mirkwood. The rolling hills, small forests, and rough walking path to Radagast's home all make for a refreshing walk, even in the soggy, nippy weather. Before long, you crest a green mound crowned with evergreen pines, firs, and tall beech trees, some of which cling to their gold, orange, and copper leaves. Others altogether, they're barren. Below you in a shallow green dell is an unassuming but homely U-shaped wooden house or cabin that's built around a giant oak. It's nestled in a cluster of smaller trees and is surrounded by a miniature blue pond and a weathered brown picket fence. On the wooden porch of the home sits a bearded man, advanced in years, in a time-worn, dark brown cloak and hood. He gently rocks back and forth in a chair, and it appears he's conversing with two stocky red deer that are now sporting their dark brown winter coat. These stags are large enough that any sized hobbit, even Bull Roarer Took, could ride one, assuming any respectable hobbit was that courageous and cracked enough to try. Rambling down the grassy hill, past a rickety wooden gate into the front of the home, it curiously feels the air is calmer and milder, and the drizzle you felt since you and Gandalf departed from the elves, it's no longer present. An inscrutable feeling comes over you. It was the same feeling you experienced in seeing Rivendell. It's as if you've stepped into a world outside of your own. Whether it be happenstance or otherworldly divination, you suspect this grassy dell and wizard's home are protected from the elements by some kind of enchantment. If it's indeed possible to sense magic, you're feeling it in this moment. Your host welcomes you at his door. He is a kind and gentle person, but he genuinely is peculiar and exhibits behavioral oddities at times. Gandalf hinted as much. He's a recluse who spends more time with animals than men, elves, and others who walk on two legs, so it's no wonder he's developed some quirks along the way. After snacking on dried fruit and pine nuts, which are appreciated but short of the sustenance you were hoping for, the three of you talk long into the evening about recent doings and bustlings in the northern part of the world. By the sounds of it, the ripples of Smaug's demise will be felt by this region for a very long time. Night falls, and the weather, even in this protected dell, turns chilly. The wind picks up, and retiring indoors feels like a good idea at this point. Radagast intently sniffs the frosty air, like a hound dog might scrounge for clues at a crime scene.
Snow flurries, strong ones. I'll need to inform our four-legged guides,
meaning his ponies, you suppose,
that the trip to Beorn's home tomorrow will be a wintry one.
And with that, Radagast shows you and the Grey Wizard to your sleeping quarters for the night. And then he heads off to speak with his ponies. Radagast, as it turns out, has more pens and stables than he does guest rooms. The rooms he does have are rustic at best. However, the frugal lodgings will do fine for the night. You're out of the elements, and when you look up tonight, you'll see a wooden ceiling rather than the night sky, and that's more than enough to be thankful for. There are 2 guest mattresses on either side of a softly lit room that's much wider than it is long. There aren't paintings in the room, but the oak walls have detailed and quite impressive reliefs of landscapes and nature scenes carved directly into them. Your host must be a skillful wood carver. On the end tables, also finely carved from oak, are pitchers of cold water for thirsty travelers and a warm basin and hand towels to wash before bed. Roscoble is a far cry from the accommodations in Rivendell. Few places, if any, can measure up to the last homely house east of the sea. But you appreciate that you'll be sleeping with a roof over your head and a shelter that will keep the icy weather outside. After a quick wash, a drink of cool water, and a moment to express thanks for having eaten and not been eaten this day, you bid Gandalf, who is now enjoying a pipe in silence, a good night's rest. The last thoughts that you have before being whisked off to sleep are seeing the old man reviewing parchments, perhaps maps, on the table next to his bed. And you wonder, is this gray pilgrim more than he appears to be? Is he more than an old man in a battered hat who makes exquisite fireworks? An intriguing riddle for sure, but the answer, you suppose, will have to wait. For now, it's time to rest. Chapter 2. Morning breaks overcast and chilly. This would be a fine morning to remain in a warm, comfy bed, and folks back home in the Shire probably would welcome a brisk morning like this, should they be allowed to enjoy it from underneath their blankets. That will not be your fate today. Shrugging your shoulders and shaking your legs and arms to get the blood pumping in the chill of the morning, you begrudgingly get started on the day. However, you're already longing for a nap or at least a more restful night's sleep on your way to Beorn's home. Being that you'll be traveling across country today and through the night, your prospects feel slim. But there's no use stewing about it. The day has begun, and your presence is needed. It won't be long before Gandalf starts looking for you, and it's better to get up before he gets you. Gandalf, of course, has been known to be a little cranky in the morning, so you'd better not risk it. As you finish making your bed, you're reminded that the previous night's accommodations were certainly better than sleeping under the stars, but you found the bed to be a little lumpy, and the blankets, perhaps made of goat hair, scratchy and kind of prickly. Well, you've had better night's sleeps, you suppose. After bundling up in your warmer clothes, a heavy wool hood and cloak, your red waistcoat, and travel corduroy trousers, you leave your sleeping quarters and hear a faint hustle and bustle of bodies moving to and fro. Somebody, or some bodies, are busy this morning, you think. Gandalf's, of course, nowhere to be found, but it sounds like preparations for the trip are well underway. You hope that in spite of your late start on the day, there will be time for breakfast and perhaps even a second breakfast before you set off. But if there were fresh pancakes or waffles, you certainly don't smell them. And that's too bad. They would have gone down nicely on a wintry morning like today. Making your way out into the common area, you discover through a frosted window that throughout the night, it snowed while the world slept. The grassy floor, which just yesterday was overlaid in a blanket of red, yellow, and orange leaves, is now covered by a foot or two of firm white powder. You pry open the heavy wooden front door and find the source of all of that commotion. That faint hustle and bustle turns out to be Gandalf and Radagast, They're busy loading boxes, luggage, packages, and paraphernalia, and 2 dwarven treasure chests, one of silver and the other one of gold, onto the largest and perhaps most ornamented carriages that you've ever seen. Certainly not like the rustic vegetable, fruit, or pipeweed carriages that frequent the 4 corners of the Shire. Those are much smaller. No, this carriage looks like a miniature version of one of those big people's homes living in Breeland. It looks like a house on wheels, but instead of actual wheels, there are mithril sled runners to speed the carriage across the ice and snow. At the front of the carriage are 7 stout Highland ponies, all of which are known, named by, and nurtured by Radagast. It's clear they look out for one another and have a special bond. A trip to Beorn's, whether towing an oversized carriage or not, is actually a treat and not a burden for these ponies. They stamp and whinny in anticipation of heading out as sweat steams from their bodies in the crisp morning air. Beorn is known to them, and he is just as hospitable to 4-legged friends as Radagast, maybe more. From what you've gathered from Gandalf and Radagast, the journey from Roscoble to Beorn's homestead will take a day if your ponies move at a good pace. As the eagle flies, it's just over 30 leagues to Beorn's home. As the pony trots, it might be closer to 35. Well, no matter how far it actually is, you're ready to be on your way, and the ponies seem to be ready as well. With a helping hand from Radagast, you climb up to the high perch, the coach of the carriage, which is a little higher off the ground than you and most hobbits would care for. However, the view from this vantage point is inspiring, and the plump and comfy cushion seats and snacks, which are just tucked under your legs and feet, give you a hopeful feeling as the ponies start off. With the wind in your face and the sun at your back, you bid Roscoble farewell. To your surprise and amusement, finches, ground squirrels, red-tailed foxes, and the deer you saw when you first met the brown wizard all follow the carriage out of the lane, seeing you off and wishing you and their venerable compatriot a safe journey and a quick return. They'll miss Radagast while he's away. Though thoroughly blanketed by snow, the ponies trek along a rough and worn path into the west. The wind blows chill on your face, but the land is quiet. It's as if it's still waking up from a heavy night of snow. This land is untamed and unpredictable, but there seems to be little to worry about. Nothing, and no one stirs. Despite the ponies trotting along at a good clip, everything remains tranquil and undisturbed. The idyllic and unchanging terrain rolls by. It feels like you're journeying through a picturesque watercolor painting, one that you might find in the Matham House in Mickle Delving. Far in the distance, you see the white crowns of the Misty Mountains. Between you and those mountains lays a nondescript expanse of plains. No lakes, rivers, caves, or cliffs. Just ivory highlands, meadows, troughs, and clusters of trees for leagues in each direction. You reach below your legs and pull out one of the rucksacks, the one the elves gave you before departing, stuffed with food and perhaps other goodies, you hope. Disappointing. Dried nuts and fruits, but they will have to suffice. However, you discover a silver flask containing a clear liquid that's neither cold nor warm.
Miracle.
Gandalf says.
At least that's what it's referred to in elven speech. In the common tongue, we might call it precious juice.
Receiving a gesture from the wizard that you should take just a small sip, you bring the flask up to your mouth.
Not too much. This elven mead has a pleasant fragrance, but drink too much, and it'll knock you right off your fairy feet.
Quite right. As you look up and answer after taking a swig, you quickly find that a couple of sips were more than enough to drive away the chill of the morning, as well as quell most of your hunger pangs, at least for a while. Marvelous, aren't they? The elves, I mean. How do they ever come by such a delightful beverage, you ask? Screwing the metal lid back onto the flask, you wonder if, given the choice between the gaffer's home brew and this translucid elven elixir, which would you choose? Who knows? Maybe someday the two can put their heads together and create a liquid concoction that takes the best of elven and halfling cultures. Time passes, and the hills and lowlands lazily roll by. As the ponies trot, you hear the wind blow and the metal runners gliding on top of the ice and snow. Sitting in thought and in silence between the two wizards, you feel small, almost inconsequential, in spite of your recent distinguished deeds and adventures. But this isn't necessarily a bad thing. Slipping back into sensible Hobbit anonymity, as well as traveling in the security of two of the most capable magicians in the land, is a most reassuring reflection. You feel safe and secure, and not being the center of attention is actually a good place to be. To pass the time, the two wizards recount tales from long ago, and they sing in an ancient tongue, pleasant to listen to, but you don't quite understand the lyrics. And they tell stories about peculiar people in distant lands that are wholly new to you. So you aren't left out. You all relive and retell portions of your travels and adventures with the dwarves. And to your surprise, you do miss them more than you expected. Alan's wisdom, Feely's and Keely's good-natured jokes, and culinary suggestions from Bomber. And of course, dear Thorin. And you fidget with one of the gold buttons on your red waistcoat that they gifted to you to replace those you lost under the goblin tunnels in the Misty Mountains. All of the buttons have the same dwarvish rune carved on their face, 14, which celebrates the number of your initial company. Warts and all, you do miss the dwarves, and you hope the remaining members of your company will accept your offer to come to tea when the spring is in the Shire. The day wears on, and the chilly gust of wind serves as a rude reminder that the weather, at least right now, is far from the warmth of springtime. The sun, which has peeked throughout the charcoal clouds throughout the day, ducks behind the misty mountains in the west. As if the weather was waiting for the sun to retire for the day, the wind picks up, and the snow whips across the front of the carriage. The ponies and wizards are unfazed by the undesirable turn in the weather. You, on the other hand, you wouldn't mind being indoors about right now. Maybe it was the lack of sleep you received the night before, but you find yourself missing the shelter of Baggins, Rivendell, or at this point any port in a storm, like Roscoble will do. Noticing that you're showing signs of uneasiness, Radagast recommends that now might be a good time to seek shelter in the carriage's interior.
For now, take a respite from this weather, young halfling. You'll find soft furnishings, fresh food, and a warm place to lay your head for the night. Go and take the rest you need that you've well earned.
You thank him for this suggestion, but look to Gandalf. Isn't it going to be dark and just as cold in there? The thought of what was actually in the carriage is a curiosity that's leapt in and out of your head most of the day. But you figured it was off limits and therefore didn't ask about it. The old wizard brushes a few snowflakes from his bushy eyebrows, and he gives you a wink.
I think you'll find the accommodations quite agreeable. While I can't change the weather, I do have a few tricks up my sleeve beyond the fireworks that you and your fellow halflings have come to know.
Presenting Gandalf with a hopeful but quizzical look back, you question what exactly the aged wizard meant by having a few tricks up his sleeve. Gandalf reassures you that you won't have to be mindful of snowstorms, achy legs from walking, or any unreasonable request from an over-demanding and sometimes thankless dwarven company.
Tonight,
He explains,
you will rest your sore limbs, quiet your mind, and revitalize your hobbit spirit. And when you wake, having been refreshed by a gentle night's sleep, you'll be far from the dark forest of Mirkwood, and on the rolling plains of Wilderland, east of the Carrick. No, tonight there will be no adventures or doing anything unexpected. You have earned a full belly of good food and a restful slumber, my friend. In fact, we've been saving what's inside the carriage as a surprise for you, young friend.
Of course, all of this sounds delightful. You're weary in mind and in body, and a good night's sleep sounds both right and proper. Yes, it's time to create some distance between your worries, weariness, and the weather, which now has turned spiteful. It's time to seek shelter and the security of being indoors. It's time you took care of yourself. You've earned it. Chapter 3. Enticed by Gandalf's hints about the carriage's interior, you politely take your leave of the two wizards, the ponies, and the blowing snow. You sure-footedly descend from your perch on the coach and open the sturdy door to the carriage and what looks like your own private quarters for the night. A final shiver runs through your bones as the carriage's heavy wooden door clicks shut behind you. Winter's icy grip will have no hold on you tonight. You let out a cleansing sigh of relief and take in your new surroundings. To your delight, the interior is neither dark nor cold as Gandalf suggested. A gentle wave of warm air washes over you as your eyes are drawn to the soft glow of several cream-colored flickering candles, giving off an ambient, welcoming light. There are no bright spots or harsh shadows in this space, just a gentle, inviting radiance from the wax candles. It might be frigid outside, but it feels like springtime in the Shire in here. In this traveling oasis, you no longer have to be worried about the cold, the wind, or the snow. What first catches your attention is a wooden clock on the wall making a gentle and rhythmic sound that's pleasing to your ears. You still hear the faint whispers of the wind whipping up outside, and you can just make out the timely pattern of horse hooves crunching on the snowy plains of Wilderland. But for all intents and purposes, everything becomes quiet. A peculiar, magical feeling of contentment and serenity washes over you, and you weigh the possibility that this carriage was blessed by some elf's or wizard's magic to grant those who enter a stillness of mind and body. On the opposite side of the carriage, and a little higher than eye level, is a circular stained glass window that adds a splash of light and color to the space. But it allows for much welcome privacy. It is double paned to keep the cold at bay and is made from green, blue, and white painted glass. Rubbing your eyes and focusing, you notice the translucent artwork is of white ships in a harbor. Behind them are emerald green fields and a white tower. And you wonder if it's a scene from the Wood Elves' long and storied history. The walls and ceiling of the carriage have a rough but pleasing tactile texture. They are a natural beige color and are accented by rich, mahogany wooden beams with Baroque carvings of leaves, flowers, and elvish characters that convey blessings. Below you is a plush, hand-knotted rug, giving you a warm, furry sensation under your woolly feet. The rug is a rich forest green color, burgundy trim, and in the middle of the rug is stitched an oak tree surrounded by silver stars, revealing its origin. A gift, you suppose, from the king of the wood elves of Mirkwood. Below the rug is even more of a welcome surprise. The mahogany-stained floorboards are heated. It turns out that heated sand lime bricks are neatly stacked just below the wooden planks. An ingenious idea for bitter winter's night's journeys through the countryside, just like tonight. They give off a most agreeable warmth that thaws the bottom of your toes and radiates through your legs. And this warming sensation makes you grin from ear to ear. The sides of this inner carriage look like half-timbered flats, like the ones you'd seen in Bree and Staddle, comfy and hospitable homes, even if they aren't in a sensible hobbit hole. The ceiling, as you gaze above you, has dark mahogany beams. Their rich hue makes the space feel intimate and cozy. To one side of the carriage sits a taupe, down-blend couch with a generous assortment of cotton and silk down pillows, knitted and waffle-woven fleece blankets, and a thick forest green down comforter. No matter how low the temperature dips outside, these blankets will keep you warm from the top of your curly head down to your toes. Wizards and other big people might only find this couch ideal for sitting, but for you and others of hobbit stature, it will make for the perfect place to settle in, stretch out completely, and then finally curl up for a blissful sleep for the night. Its cushions are pillowy soft, but its foundation is sturdy enough to dampen any bumps or any bounces while en route to your destination. Next to the couch is a finely carved oak writing table with silver accents, which has decorative leaf and branch carvings interwoven into an organic design. On the other side of the carriage are a well-stocked pantry and a modest collection of books, maps, and sketches neatly arranged on a sturdy wooden bookshelf. The books, featuring elven lore, tales from the First and Second Ages, as well as dwarven practical wisdom, are intriguing. And in fact, snuggling up in the feathery down comforter with a handful of these age-old writings, it seems like the perfect way to quiet your mind and gently glide into a deep sleep for the night. And as tempting as that may sound, your eye, or more specifically, your nose, is not drawn to the couch and the bookshelf, but to what's inside the pantry. You'll get to reading and relaxing soon enough, but you haven't had much but some dried fruit and a slice of toast and second breakfast, so you're long overdue for a proper meal. While you've caught the pleasant scent of parchment and aged manuscripts, not moldy but old, but also a subtle hint of fresh bread and honey in the air. It smells delicious, so it's time to see what the pantry has to offer. Despite not finding any meats in the pantry, sausages, salted pork, and the like, Radagast and, of course, Beorn would not approve of those. You do discover an assortment of cheeses, crispy baguettes, honey and sweet butter, and fresh berries. And there's also a selection of fresh garden greens to make a salad. How in the world Radagast came by these summer culinary delights in the middle of winter, you'll never know. You shrug your shoulders and smirk. He is, after all, a wizard, isn't he? Placed neatly in the corner of the pantry are a heated metal urn, a clear glass water carafe, and a small wooden barrel that has curious elven characters on it. No doubt a sampling of the Elven King's finest vintage. Desiring something to warm your spirit, you pass on the water and the wine, at least for now. and you hold a silver tankard underneath the warm urn and turn the spigot. Puffs of steam and a rush of nut-brown colored liquid come from the spigot, and an unmistakable sweet aroma fills the carriage, the smell of dark chocolate. You wrap your chilled hands around the piping tankard, draw it close, and feel the warmth of the steam caress your face. You take a sip and experience a pleasant swell of warmth and savory sugar. It's at the perfect temperature and has the right amounts of sweet and bitter chocolate. You feel the tension in your shoulders and the heavy feeling in your legs lessen. You take a moment for yourself and allow your breathing to settle. You can relax now and just be yourself. Placing your tankard down on the wooden table and wiping a spot of hot chocolate from your upper lip, you notice several curious, cream-colored cake-like wafers delicately wrapped in malorn leaves. They were baked in the shape of a Telperian flower. At least that's what they look like. Inquisitively, you break off a small piece and place it in your mouth. The corner you've sampled is flaky, and yet it's velvety, and it has the most delectable, buttery aftertaste. These cakes will make an exquisite dessert, you think. But your hunger pangs will require more sustenance to fully restore your well-being, so you fix a generous plate of fresh fruits, bread, sweet butter, crisp salad greens, as well as one of these curious cream-colored wafers to savor for later. And you sit down next to the finely carved wooden table and enjoy the most pleasant meal you've had since you've left the Wood Elves' kingdom on the eastern side of Mirkwood Forest, which now seems like ages ago. Simple, unadorned food that is fresh, wholesome, and, yes, quite satisfactory. After a second helping of bread and salad, you feel well-fed and content. Fat and happy, as Master Hamfast often would declare after an especially hearty meal at the Golden Perch. You're nourished and content once again, and you're grateful. Taking stock of your situation, you're now out of the uncomfortable elements. You're adequately thawed out, and your stomach is no longer wagging like an empty sack. You are appreciative to be in this healing space, to be warm, secure, and free from the stresses and burdens of the outside world, even if it is just for the night. This is your time, and you're going to make the most of it. The carriage gently oscillates as you glide over the snowy countryside. The subtle, rhythmic motion produces a soothing effect that eases your frame of mind like a baby being rocked gently back and forth in a crib. Radagast ponies are sure-footed and agile, and they could find their way from Roscoble to Beorn's home if you blindfolded and spun them around until they were dizzy. So you're assured an undisturbed and agreeable journey as you travel through the wintry night. The Wilderland countryside rushes silently by as the world slumbers. A solitary, great-horned owl hooting in the darkness, a passing flock of disinterested sheep, and a curious red fox are aware of your presence, but no one else is about. The moon plays hide-and-seek behind the billowy snow clouds. For the first time in a long time, the world feels at peace, and you're content to solely focus your attention on just sitting back and casually sipping on your hot chocolate, no longer concerned with icy winds or hunger pangs. You begin to think about recovering, reading, and a restful night's sleep. With hot chocolate tankard in hand, you peruse the bookshelf and select a leather-bound worn text that chronicles the fauna and flora of Wilderland. The colored illustrations, topographical maps, ancient lore, and pages filled with penmanship that could rival a monk look engaging. You can't wait to settle in and get lost in its pages. With the book under your arm, you make your way over to the couch and a basin next to it that's filled with hot water. Before you get under the fleece blankets and down comforter, resting your weary head on the silk pillows, you take a washcloth and lavender soap bar in hand and clean the earth from your face and neck. The warm water and pleasing scent refresh and calm your mind. After thoroughly drying yourself with a downy towel, you're ready for your book and your bed for the night. But before you dive under the blankets, you discover one more blessing before bed. Next to the pillows lay a set of double-stitched teal blue flannel pajamas with white satin cuffs on the wrists and ankles. They are perfectly tailored for one of Hobbit stature and have the most pleasant scent. The smell of fresh linen drying on a laundry line in the middle of summer. You happily discard your rugged travel-worn clothes, sturdy mithril coat, leather belt, and your ancient elvish sword, which, thankfully, has not shown a blue glow since the Battle of Five Armies. The velvety touch of the flannel pajamas is a welcome change to your skin. Your body and your mind feel lighter and freer. Perhaps these woven pajamas were elven blessed to grant peace of mind and restful slumber to anyone who wears them. In any case, they feel like they were made just for you. After a refreshing sip of clear water, having just the right amount in your glass to satisfy your thirst, you stretch out on the cushy couch and eagerly wrap yourself in a chestnut-colored fleece blanket and thick down comforter. Getting under the covers, you feel a refreshing chill against your skin. Shivering just a little, you pull the comforter tight around you. It won't be long before you're warm and toasty. Propping your back against several comfy pillows, you open the leather-bound text on Wilderland and explore its pages and colorful illustrations. Seeing all the flora and fauna makes you wish you were traveling through Rovanyan, also known as Wilderland, during the spring rather than in the dead of winter. But it's nice to know this area of Middle-earth is teeming with so much life most of the year. You sip more hot chocolate from your tankard and break off another piece of the cake-like wafers, filling up the corners, as your fellow hobbits would say. Time gets away as you leisurely flip from page to page, continue to warm up under the down comforter, and enjoy the subtle movement of the carriage as you go up and down snowdrifts in the moonlight. Taking a break from your book, you observe the soft glow of the candles. The flames rhythmically dance in the middle of the melted wax pools. You stretch your tired limbs, yawn, and sleepily rub your hands over your eyes and face. You decide then that you've had your fill of the day. You reverently close the aged book and place it on the floor below the couch. And you take a moment to express gratitude again for having eaten and not been eaten this day. And you curl up on the plush couch. Your head sinks deep into the fluffy textured pillows that you'd swear have a hint of rosemary, a scent to help you relieve anxiety and stress, and then to sail off into slumber. And it's in that moment the carriage door opens with a jolt. A short blast of cold air fills the room, and for an instant, the candle flames flicker. Gandalf enters and hastily shuts the carriage door behind him. But all is quiet again. You readjust your pillows, wrap the comforter around you a little tighter, and nestle deeper into the couch cushions to retain warmth. Gandalf, who needs to crouch in order to stand in the carriage, offers his apologies for the intrusion. He makes a hasty plate of food from your modest pantry, fills his wine glass from the small wooden barrel, and reclines next to your couch at the table. Sleepy-eyed, you poke your head out from the covers that you've burrowed into and inform Gandalf that you were just about to settle in for bed. His timing is peculiar as usual, but brushing off your observation and the snow that's accumulated on the brim of his blue hat, he reminds you that a wizard is never late, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to. And while you're still not sure there's any truth to that mantra, you've definitely heard it before. In any case, the Grey Pilgrim will see you off as you're ready for a night of soothing, sound sleep.
Radagast is more than content navigating the carriage. He's at peace with animal companions, and the disagreeable winter weather doesn't concern him. Besides, I thought I'd provide companionship as you settle in for the night.
You thank the wizard for such comfortable accommodations, but wonder why all the fuss was made over someone so small.
It wasn't just me, my dear friend, who deserves the credit for your accommodations. Through your trials, adventures, and escapes on your way to and through the dragon's lair, you've helped man, elf, dwarf, and yes, me, rid the northern part of the world of one of the worst scourges in the Second Age, the worm smog. Your name and deeds will always be in high honor east of the Anduin and north of the Old Forest Road. They'll be singing songs for ages about burglar Baggins, renowned tormentor of dragons.
Hearing all of this brings a smile to your face, though sleep still does weigh heavy on you. Your eyelids are heavy, and sleep sounds more agreeable than talking at the moment, and it doesn't hurt that it's the perfect temperature for sleeping. The air outside is nippy, but underneath the knitted blankets, couch cushions, and posh down comforter, you're warm, placid, and dry. Gandalf finishes off the last handful of berries on his plate, and he nibbles on one of the cream-colored wafers which he's informed you are called lembas, or elven whey bread.
The elves claim that the nourishment in lembas bread can keep a traveler, even one of the big people, on their feet for a day of long labor. One cake can be as filling as a full-course meal for a hobbit.
Chuckling a little to yourself, you decide to tell Gandalf tomorrow, not right now, that you've already enjoyed 2 lembas cakes and plan to have another when you arrive at Beorn's home. Then again, you think Gandalf probably already knows. Deceiving wizards is difficult to do, and it's also dangerous to try. At least that's what you've been told. And nothing seems to get by the old wizard anyway. Gandalf tells you that Beorn is looking forward to seeing you again on the morrow.
Especially because you'll be traveling without being accompanied by a troop of impolite dwarfs.
In anticipation of your arrival, he has built a comfortable guest house made especially for hobbits, with a large pantry and fireplace. And while it's not underground, it does have round doors and windows. And of course, it's all on one level. No second floor for halflings who don't like heights. This all sounds delightful, and you're looking forward to hearing Beorn's booming voice and his tales, sometimes grisly stories from distant lands. But in talking with a wizard long into the night, about this and about that, you find it difficult to keep your eyelids open. You yawn, sleepily rub your face, and rest your chin on your chest as you close your eyes for just a moment. Seeing that you're tired, Gandalf offers you a glass of chilled water from the carafe that was in the corner of the pantry. Perhaps it was because you were parched from talking, but it was the most refreshing pure glass of water you've ever enjoyed.
It should. It is spring water from the lonely mountain Erebor itself. A small gift from the dwarves to you and me for our part in helping them reclaim their home.
Well, having finished off a most refreshing glass of water, you again lie down on the couch, stretch out, rest your head on the yielding pillows, and nestle yourself into the warm blankets like a rabbit burrowing into a hole for a winter's nap. You are finally going to be able to get rest in a real bed, or just as good as a real bed, for the couch is just as warm as you'd hoped and twice as comfortable. To help you drift off to sleep, Gandalf waves his staff over the couch, and a small burst of red and yellow sparks fizzle into the air above you, offering a blessing that whoever shall sit or lie down upon this couch will find peace of mind. Your muscles relax and your mind clears. That's just like Gandalf. A smile creeps across your tired face. An outer shell tough as an olifant's hide, but deep down, he has a saintly, sort of angelic aura about him that makes you feel anchored and secure. You feel blessed to know him more than just an elderly man skilled in fashioning squibs and dwarf candles, elf fountains, goblin barkers, and thunderclaps. He's not a wandering vagabond, pyrotechnic entertainer, or meddling, sometimes irascible old man. He is your friend, and a good friend he is. With the wave of the wizard's hand, the candles dim, and he settles into his chair beside your couch and recounts how the Arkenstone was discovered deep in the heart of Erebor, and when he himself healed the Eagle Lord from a poisoned arrow wound not far from where you're headed. You slowly close your eyes and just listen to his familiar, raspy, and yet soothing voice. And though you're leagues away from your snug hobbit hole, you suddenly feel that at last you're at home. Being lulled to sleep by the sounds of Gandalf's musings, the ticking of the clock, the blustery winter wind outside, and the undulating movements of the carriage over the snow, you're at peace, filled with gratitude, and now filled with good food and drink. You feel quite restored. Tonight, you won't have to contend with tuning out a cacophony of 13 overtired dwarves snoring. You just hear the rhythmic shushing sound of your sleigh through the snow. And with that, you drift off to a deep, restful sleep that you so deserve. Tomorrow, you'll be reacquainted with your oversized bear of a friend, and that you're so looking forward to. But there are many hours before dawn. It will take you all night to reach your destination, and that's good. You've mentally put away any negative thoughts or feelings that will interfere with a tranquil winter night's sleep. You are at peace and in no rush to get to where you're going. You can take all the time you need to doze off and sleep as deeply as your heart's content. The moonlight shines through the solitary stained glass window. Gandalf vigilantly watches over you and hums a lay of Eriador to himself. Your carriage effortlessly glides across the plains of Wilderland. As the night gets on, all feels right with the world once again. So you give yourself permission to be at peace to let go, and to finally enter into a profound rest. Middle-earth will be waiting for you when you wake up from a good night's slumber. In the meanwhile, it's time to begin another journey, one that you've patiently waited to embark on for a long time, to a land of starlight, possibilities, and pleasant, restful dreams. Good night.